The art form of theater brings an audience as close as you can to the performer. The audience can relate to the actors and almost feel their emotions. Today, I'm fortunate enough to speak to someone who is extremely passionate about this art form and has been doing a lot of hard work as an African in Denmark in relation to this art form and putting on many productions. So, hi, Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. So, we're going to take a little bit of a tour or a little bit of a rewind, throwback of your life story. Initially, you were living in Poland before you moved to Denmark. And a question that a lot of foreigners get in Denmark is, how did you end up in Denmark?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So the thing is this, I've always wanted to start a theater company in Denmark prior to Poland.
Yes.
And as soon as 2003, I recall, it was very clear to me that I wanted to start a theater company. And in 2007, I made sure in my heart and mind that it's going to be in Copenhagen. So one thing led to another. I was living in Poland, and while in Poland, I was still working for culture. I was working in Gdansk with the Baltic Sea culture, and interestingly enough, it's being run by a Nigerian guy. It covers all the Baltic countries. So we're developing cultures, and I learned a lot from him as well at the point. And then we moved to Denmark, and I don't know how many years that was. And I went straight for it because that was the plan, that was the vision, that's the goal, to start a theater company in Copenhagen.
Okay, great. And you said you went for it. How exactly did you get involved in the theater scene in Denmark?
I mean, first and foremost, it took a couple of years to just think about it, to envision it, to dream it, to write it down, to just dream it. So I recall one time, I think I was cleaning in some places, as many Africans have at some point in Denmark. I said, you know what, enough of this thing, man. I have different dreams. And I put that broom aside. I said, I'm going for it, you know. So I went out and I started executing the dreams. I started executing it in terms of sharing the ideas with people on different places. Say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Calling for different meetings as early as 2014. And that sort of got momentum. And that's how I got into it, pretty much just by jumping in.
Yes. And I guess when you talk about jumping in, part of that involves the establishment of ACT. So is this an organization that you established or you are founder of that organization?
Yes, I am.
Yes. And how did that idea come about? What are the pieces that came into play in order for that to get off the ground?
It was a confluence of many things because I sort of had to sort of first understand the theatre scene in Denmark, and from the perspective of I would want to start a theatre company using a language which I'm comfortable in. So in that respect, we had to sort of make sure, okay, it's going to be English, that's one, but not exclusively. There will always be space for any other language, so to speak. But that was sort of my entrance to it. And then I sort of to analyze also, so which other English-speaking theatre companies are in Denmark? What are they doing, you know, and that sort of thing. So that is sort of the groundwork in that respect. And then, of course, it takes a lot of practical matters, setting up an organization, setting up a constitution, you know, setting up a board, and you know who's on board, how do we share ideas. So it was a whole 1 year process from 2014 to 2015. Actually, we're celebrating 5 years anniversary as it is here right now.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's part and parcel of establishing an organization. And I think one of the things that you had to tell people about is what exactly ACT was going to be. So can you tell me what is ACT? What does it stand for as the abbreviation, and what does it stand for as an organization?
Yeah, so we have ACT is an acronym for Afro-Cosmopolite Thespians. The word Thespians is pretty much means actor. And the whole idea is sort of our vision is to have multiple cultures share a stage. And we're very specific about this word multiple, because multiple gives it gives a suggestion or rather the impression that it has to be inclusive of all. And that is in relation to who are in Denmark, or the Nordics, or globally as you wish. So that is what ACT is. That's what it stands for. It stands for diversity, it stands for excellence, and it stands for tolerance. So these are some of the three different things we're navigating around with.
Yes, and I can imagine that if you just sort of a new kid on the block in Denmark, it's difficult to gather people around a concept and to build a theatre company. So how did you manage to actually to get people to buy into your idea?
And the thing is I've realized one thing about we human beings. People are drawn to vision. And so we have to start from there. Before anything else, what is vision? For me, in my own understanding of vision, that vision is a unique, specific project that's designed to fulfill a certain goal, a certain mission. So I have to be very definitive about it. And vision never benefits the individual; it benefits a greater good. It's as opposed to ambition. So if I had placed ambition as on the table and told people this is what we should do together, then I don't think it will resonate, because then people think, then it becomes only self-seeking. So what I did was I had to be very clear on the vision of the organization, and we have a document about it. It's documented in the very specificities about what we want to accomplish within the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And I keep revising it every so on and forth. And whenever I'm bringing anybody on board, of which you just ask me, how do I manage to get so many people on board? I had to meet each one by one.
Yes.
One by one. And because I have to share my heart and they have to share theirs. And we see if there is an ebb and flow. If it's kind of synchronized, then we run with it together. And if not, then we sort of, just part ways. So it was a one-on-one thing. I had to meet, it took me a long time. And I still do it with every production. I sort of, when I have an idea of a production, I sort of meet the potential actors and the potential participants on a one-on-one basis. That's where it starts from.
Okay. And it sounds like you had a great plan put together, but a great philosopher by the name of Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I'm pretty sure you got a few knocks and bruises along the way and faced a couple of challenges. So what challenges did you face?
Oh, dear me. I'm going to tell you this one because I'm speaking to the brothers here.
Yes.
Excuse me. I remember one of the challenges because of fast production, you must excuse me for a second. So, the very first production that I wanted to put up was by an African playwright, and I will still do it at some point. But I felt a lot of resistance, invisible resistance, as to how dare you, and sensing that pulse, I say, you know what, I think I'm going to double dare you, so we'll put up then Shakespeare. And that's when I really felt the resistance, because I felt other people telling me, and these are powerful people in the business, and they said, what makes you think we'll allow you to do a Shakespeare? And that was sort of the punches, as you just described Mike Tyson's, and I have felt, and many others, but this specific one, I remember it, and I was told by a gentleman who's in a power position that, what makes you think we will allow you to do a Shakespeare? And that was enough for me to say, you know what, okay then, let's go for it. I felt the punch, but I always thrive in being knocked down a little bit. It gives me sort of a drive, like, I'm going to do this thing one way or the other, right?
I understand. Sometimes some people, when they get a little bit of a bloody nose, that's what gets them off the ground.
Yeah.
And, makes them put up a bigger fight. Yeah, so that was, you talked about you were going to put on a production by an African playwright. Did you actually do that?
I have not yet. Sorry,
Yes, so you have not yet done it.
I have not yet done it. It requires a lot of, because if it's an African production, in my perspective, it has to be of the highest excellence possible, conceivable, within their own merits, or our own merits as well. So it's an expensive production.
Yeah.
And to raise money for such a production requires requires a lot of money. That's essential because you're not going to do this as a shoddy, penniless production. They can come and say, "Aha, look at the Africans, what they're doing,"
Yes.
So this is one of my biggest dreams. However, a big however, we have managed to put up an African American production, which is one of the highest esteemed playwrights, African American playwrights in the U.S.
Yes.
So I think we're coming closer to, or rather, we're already there, if I may say that, to sort of explore African canons.
Okay. So what are these productions that you've managed to put up? You talked about a Shakespeare play that you've done, and you've talked about this play that's by an American playwright. What are these productions?
So the very first production we put up was in 2016, and that was The Merchant of Venice,
Yes.
of course, by William Shakespeare.
And I'll just say that I actually was in attendance.
I remember that. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Thank you. We need more support. People coming to watch our plays and and joining the cause in different fronts.
It was just good enough. It looked pretty close by,
Yeah.
so it was convenient for me.
Yeah.
And what else?
So beyond that, there was in 2017 is when we put up An Enemy of the People
Okay.
by Henrik Ibsen, as adapted by Arthur Miller. Arthur Miller was a Polish immigrant, Jewish immigrant in the America, the U.S., and he is a prolific playwright and wrote, he's one of those high canons, and he adapted an Henrik Ibsen play, a Norwegian playwright who's also up there, and we put up this in collaboration with at least 3 minority-speaking theatre companies in the Nordic region. Okay. That was a heavy project as well. And then 2019, which is there's a whole 1 year before that, of preparation, is when we put up Ntozake Shanges for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. And incidentally, Ntozake Shange passed on not right before, but a couple of months before we had our own production. And right after that, Broadway put up the same production. So it was really at the nick of time with this particular piece, which is about women in general, but specifically about women of color.
Okay.
In that respect.
I see. That's so you've been pretty busy, and I can imagine putting together these productions is pretty involving. Can you take us through a little bit of what is involved to get one of these projects onto the big stage?
Oh dear me. First and foremost, as every other project, is a vision. The vision has to be clear, and that takes a couple of months just to dream it thoroughly, because nobody is going to give you any funds just because you come and say, "Oh, I've got this wonderful play, I want to put it up." No, they don't do that. So they sometimes the applications are really big applications that you have to write. The proposals, as some call them. So that is sort of the first step. You sort of have to say, okay, you want to do this particular play, justify it. Why?
Okay.
So that is the first step, and then the rest is a matter of details. Once you have you've justified why, the rest is a matter of details. It's about negotiating with venues. It's about negotiating with foundations, of course. It's about getting the artist together, getting the director together. It's about analyzing the text. It's a whole of other different aspects, and that whole process takes quite some time. Yeah.
And apart from that, I can imagine, especially you've discussed how difficult it is to get the funding, just as a first step. Once you actually have that part in place and you've gathered a theatre company and you have a venue, what are the challenges that come in at that point on when it comes to the rehearsals and so on?
All right. So hopefully you have great actors.
Yeah.
And we don't really work. I'm not very keen on having actors, or rather working with actors who have been, how do I put this, who hold onto their acting education at a higher esteem other than the gift that they have. So what I mean by that is we rather work with gifted actors, irrespective of their theater or acting education per se. You understand
Yes.
what I mean? So because in theater, rather in acting, you're only as good as your last production. So the thing is, so we have to start all over, like the saying Danish, helt forfra, when you come on that rehearsal setup, you know.
Yes.
So I don't do the directing. I've done that before, but that's not what I'm doing. So usually I hire a director. So far we've only worked with Afro directors. The first two production was a director from Kenya, and the Ntozake was from African American. So I usually get them engaged, and then they come and they work with the actors for a period of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, back to back.
Okay. And I also noticed, yeah, we're talking about act in Denmark, and this is where you established the theatre company, and you talked about how you had always wanted to establish a theatre company here. But I also noticed that you've put on some productions that were in Finland, and I think this is for Colour Girls in particular. How did that come about?
Well, actually, not only Finland, as well as in Stockholm.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was under the auspice of a project which we could have conceived, I should say, through 2018, and the whole idea is it's called New Nordic Voices. ACT presents New Nordic Voices, and before even I get to For Colored Girls, New Nordic Voices, what is it? It's a juxtaposition of Nordic classics alongside global South classics. So I've selected at least 3 Afro global South classics and juxtaposing them alongside 3 Nordic classics, and working with actors from different backgrounds, regardless from within this region. So that is sort of the backstory. Finland, at least for us, because it is our, as the world becomes so globalized, you really can't only be local in your outlook. You sort of, things are becoming so intertwined, and the human issues also so intertwined, and we cannot just have this tunnel. It's not really a tunnel vision, but our vision is, of course, to break barriers, to cross borders, you know, in that respect. I mean, most of us are people who have crossed borders to get here, so even with our own products, we sort of have to cross borders along with it. So Finland was a very interesting country because they have different intercultural activities happening there. And we got support from the Nordic Council of Ministers through the Nordic Culture Point, which was we were very, obviously, eternally grateful for that. And because of that, so we were working with our partners in Kaisa in Finland, and in Stockholm as well. We were working with our different partners. So you asked me, how do you get about that? You sort of you liaise with like-minded partners to start off with. So you have a vision with you, and then you liaise with like-minded partners, and the partners here is not just actors and so forth. It's, you know, it's cultural institutions, it's stakeholders, you know, it's gatekeepers, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of back and forth, flying back and forth, talking to them, phone calls, and so on and so forth. But again, it all comes back to the very rudiments. The vision has to be clear, because nobody wants to partner with anything that is not clear, and that only benefits the individual. It has to be for the greater good.
Okay, so but that's a pretty interesting. I mean, how does it work when you start going international? Are you only working with the actors or the part of the act company, or are you also bringing in some actors from the countries that you're working in? For instance, if you put something on in Stockholm, is that the whole act company travels over to Stockholm, and it's just solely the Danish act company once again, for instance, in Finland? Is that how it worked, or?
Well, I mean, yes,
approach?
I understand your question. So the thing is, it's a backstory to New Nordic Voices. So the very first, as I mentioned, in 2017, when we put up An Enemy of the People, what I did with that production is I worked with actors from Norway and from Sweden. So we had 3 actors, I believe it was 3 or 2, I can't remember. 3. I mean, plus the assistant director from Finland, and we work with the Nordic Black Theatre in Oslo, and they provided this artist. And I worked also from Malmö with Södra community, and they provided some artists. So this was when we had the production in Denmark in that respect. It was a very heavy production. It was a great production in that sense. But I noticed that there's a different process that needs to first be laid before you venture quite into working with, because all these three countries, irrespective of diversity and whatnot, they have a very different outlook of life, a very different outlook of culture, and you need a deeper dialogue. You need to dig deeper in dialogue and establish the how to work together. So that takes some time. As I mentioned to you before, with the actors, I meet them one-on-one a long time, and I make sure they know my heart, I know their heart. That's very important for me. So, but we're going to involve actors from another part of the region who maybe don't completely understand the vision of the company. It can be interesting. It can be very interesting because you've not. It can be, how do I put this? You've not yet established a good enough rapport amongst each other for you to achieve your mutual interest. So that is sort of the thing. So we've done both ways. However, but for colored girls, yes, it was actors from Denmark, and I would love to extend this. I would love to extend it to get actors from Finland. We had great audience in Finland, people of color, and they'll come and say, "Oh my God, how do we be part of this?" And we had great audience in Stockholm. It was unbelievable. And you think like of all these people of color. And one of the things I've always wanted to do is to sort of have an umbrella organization that brings together all these Nordic countries together on the table and say, how do we benefit each other? How do we build along each other? So, but that takes time. Number one, it takes time, it takes resources, and that is sort of the goal towards which we're moving to.
I mean, that was something interesting that you mentioned there, in that you want to have some sort of an umbrella organization, but then we've been talking for a while, and you've really made it clear that you want something that is a lot more multicultural, and I completely get that. But besides that, it's also very inspirational for a lot of people of African background to see you doing all of these things that you're doing. And in particular, it might be something of interest to younger people. So how is there anything that you have been working on that focuses on bringing a lot more younger people into the fray and getting them involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is sort of what we are working towards now, and especially now because of COVID, we sort of, what that did is sort of brought us back into the drawing board and say, you know what, for us to have sustainability, we need to have act under 25, and how do we go about it? So there are certain, not just logistical issues, but it's more of targeting issues, because under 25 people are in school, number one. Under 25 they're in university, hopefully. Under 25 is when they're still trying to figure out and navigating the whole thing. So what this requires, first and foremost, is to partner with schools.
Okay.
And one of the things I've been trying to look into is maybe to start off with maybe 3, 4, 5 schools in any given commune, is to sort of identify which commune has got minorities and not an excess amount of minorities, but a relatively good number of minorities to start off with. So for instance, if we take commune X, and we realize this is a particular commune, we want to start off with this pilot project of how do we involve people under 25. So that is sort of the process of how it works. And then you have to talk, maybe say if you're able to talk to the mayor or even anybody who's in the position of the commune to help, because you cannot just access the schools like that. You can't just knock in and say, hello people, hopefully they have a drama teacher, hopefully they have a way of trickling down information and disseminating it to the school. So there is that process in place. To be able to achieve this, for instance, just to get the schools involved, even before you talk about the product which you would like them to get involved with, it will take at least 1 year. That's how long it will take. But beyond that, you need a team. And this is where I plea to my African brothers who are already in Denmark, and they've settled down and they're enjoying themselves, working very hard and enjoying themselves. So let's join forces. How do we make this thing work together? Because at the beginning, you'll have to need volunteers. You'll have to need people who are able to do, certain gifts which you don't have, to lay the foundation and say, What is our vision over here? One of the dreams I've always had, of course, for instance, and I can go on and on, you better stop me at some point.
No, please do. Please do share all of this.
And I've shared this, I think I shared it with Crossing Borders as well. I think you might know the organization. Is that why don't we have an African library? Yeah, let's have an African library to start off with. Because it's not just theater, it's about literature. You know, people, Africans, rather Afros in Denmark, that generation who've maybe been born here, been bred here, and they're going to school over here, they have not had the, how do I put it? They have not had the same exposure to African literature as we who sort of move into these countries at a later point.
Yes.
And then how then do we have a systemized way of educating, or rather introducing to them this sort of stuff. So this requires more. It's not an effort of one person. It's not an effort of one organization. As a theater company, we have one focus is theater, and of course we can pick up XYZ and do X amount of things in Y amount of time. But it require a harnessing of a bigger, the seasoned ones who've been here for some time, and to draw out plans to achieve it. So that is the bigger way of doing it. But if you want to do just a quick one-off thing, that is easy. You know, it's a matter of, when next time we have a play, we put on Facebook. We put on Facebook, tell our friends to share it with people, and then we get 20 people, for instance, say, there we go, the Africans were here, we've made it. It doesn't have sustainability. That's the problem. Again, vision. I always come back to it. It has to be very precise. It has to be clear, because one of the problems is that then you have this fireworks of African organizations. It's amazing in the very beginning, and we are all happy and excited, but it doesn't have longevity, and that's sort of the thing.
Yes, that's definitely an issue that a lot of African organizations tend to face. I think in general we might be a little bit too harsh on African organizations,
right.
but I think many organizations are sort of doomed to fail from the beginning. It's just about how well they do in order to avoid that failure and actually survive for a longer period of time. And the way you're speaking with all of that passion, I can see you really come across as the person who wants to do something a lot more sustainable. And I would that is half of the job done right there. In my from my perspective, it doesn't guarantee it, because so many other factors can come into play, and that's actually something that I want to discuss with you, because you mentioned some of the challenges that you have faced, especially with the COVID-19 crisis over the past. I guess now we're in month 8 of social distancing, lockdownish type of conditions. What other challenges has this whole situation introduced to what it is that you are doing?
Oh, we had to postpone everything. We just had to postpone everything. We had different projects in place that we're trying to set up and to run. But the good thing is, at least this has sort of drawn me back into not just a drawing board, but sort of explore different facet of my gift, which is playwriting, and I'm getting into that right now. And just give me a time to just be in my own cocoon.
Should we be expecting something from you soon?
Hopefully. I'm trying to set up at least 2 plays in the next, I don't know how long, however long it will take. And I'm hoping also to sort of work with Afro playwrights in the region, and I'm meeting one interesting person at a later point this week, who's also a playwright, and sort of tell our own stories from here. It's all well and good to bring classic plays from whatever, from the Caribbeans and so forth, but to have homegrown, homemade material from here, I think that's also part of the educational aspect, because it should be interesting, like you said earlier on, to referencing our earlier conversation, to have the under 25 who develop them as playwrights. I mean, where is the Wole Soyinka of the Nordic countries? Why not?
Why not?
Yeah,
Definitely,
why not? Why not?
Yes.
They just with good training and we could get something out. So that is sort of the thing that I'm getting into right now, and let's see what comes out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for many people, this whole I guess change in lifestyle over the past almost a year now has allowed for many individuals to spend a lot more time following some of the things, or following some of the dreams, or getting some of the tasks that they've been setting aside done. And from what it sounds like, the processes that you have to go through to set up productions are pretty long drawn, and it requires a lot of patience. But if anything, I have to mention that if there's anything that I've learned from this year, or I can say the takeaway from this year for me, is that I have what I call a crash course in patience, because you have no choice but to be patient, and which is fair enough, because I think at some point you have to slow down. We've just been kind of forced to slow down, take a step back, and put certain things into place, so that we can restart and be bigger and better. And
Absolutely.
That's what I hope for you. Apart from all of this, are there any things that you'd like to share, basically about how you've shared a lot, don't get me wrong, especially about how you really focus on building a sustainable type of organization, and that has a lot more meaning to it. But what else would you like to share about what ACT can deliver, particularly to the Afro community? I know it's a multicultural thing, but it's still, for me, it resonates because you're a person like me. You
Absolutely.
do this, so I'm drawn to it because of this. So what is it that you can share about that?
All right. I mean, obviously, I've thought about this, and this is who I am.
Yes.
I cannot escape from that.
Yes.
And there's nothing to escape from anyway, because it's a delight to be who we are. The thing is, one of the things I hope for is, for instance, if we have our own venue.
Yes.
I mean, if there's someone who say, here's the money, go buy your own venue. We have our own venue somewhere, and it's an intimate place, and it's a cultural hub. It's a place of ideas, where people of color can come with their families and they can see something that resonates with a story that they know, a story, like we've said, we've got the library in place. The library talks about stories from Africa and from that whole region, and you have plays alongside to telling those different stories as an educational tool. So I envision that is the bigger dream, to see a place where it could be maybe four big productions every year, but it's a place of meetings, and people are sharing ideas, and it's more renaissance. That's what it is. It's going to be a renaissance, It's forget about the Harlem Renaissance. This is going to be, the Nordic Renaissance, the Afro-Nordic Renaissance, and that's really that's what I'm gearing towards, and I think that's what we can really offer beyond. Because I think also, like, going back to vision has to see beyond the boundaries. What are we seeing beyond the boundaries? If we had everything we need, what can we accomplish together, And I think that will be, it will not necessarily run parallel to the establishments, but what it will do, it will only make it better. It will only make it better to give people of color a place where they can go. Because if you look at it, let's take the mask off. If you look at the cultural scene of the theaters in Denmark, you can always count the number of people of color in those places.
Yes.
And because people have not connected to. So we need to have our own place. And I have to say one more thing here. What I would like to see, I'm hoping, because this cannot be achieved, again, as a one-man show, a two-man show, an organizational show. This has to be achieved on a political level. So what we need, what I hope we could do, is to convince those in the power positions in the parliament, to pass laws that will sort of policies that will be in place for foundations, the arts foundations, to allocate money for people of color on a different terms. Because if who said that, all animals are equal, but some are more equal. So so that is
George Orwell.
It's George Orwell, right?
Yeah.
Because that is sort of what we have in place at the moment. Because yes, everybody is equal, everybody can apply on equal terms. But let's face the reality: not everybody is getting that piece of pie on equal terms. This is it's sort of it's not coming into our hands. So this has to be done, to have sustainability, it has to be done from a policy level, from a political angle. That is one way. The other alternative is to get really wealthy people of color to put in their money. Say, you know what, Here we go. Let's get, what's his name, Dangote, coming and say, you know what?
Here you go.
Here you go.
Yes.
Problem solved, you know. So that is
Yeah.
sort of the, you know, the, yeah.
No, I feel you. I'll have to say that it has been a pleasure to have this expressive conversation with you about your passion, and all you have shown during this conversation is so much passion that I can't wait until the next show is on, so that I can make sure I get a ticket and I attend, and I hope a lot more people stay connected with ACT. We'll make sure that we have links in the description to everywhere you can keep up to date with everything ACT is going to be doing. And I'm pretty sure that we'll be speaking again prior to any of these productions, so you can tell us more about them and we can share that with all our audience. We don't have a large audience right now, but it was got to start from somewhere, and I'm truly grateful that you came in right at this early stage when we barely have any audience at all. But thank you so much for this conversation. I know you and I can talk for hours.
That's true.
And you said the same. So let's leave a little bit of something for some time later.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.